you any statistics or any kind of observation on the Taiwan's post-war economic development. Let me start by introducing some of the development theory that the so-called modern development theory to explain the growth of the economy. Okay, and there are some different theory that try to answer this. Okay, and usually we call it development theory or growth theory. Okay, in the 1950s, even in the 60s, the development theory actually focused on the so-called linear stage theory. Okay, and the linear stage theory means that the linear means that continuous. It's not discrete. View the process of development as a series of successful stages of the economic growth through which all countries must pass. So development, the process of development actually is a series of successful stages of economic growth, one after the other, and they are well organized in order from one stage to the others. And you must fulfill the precondition of one stage, and then you can enter into the second stage. So that's why it's called linear stage theory. Okay, stage one after the other, and they are well organized in order. You have to pass one stage in order to enter into the second stage. That is so-called linear stage, and then they characterize the development into these different stages. Okay, so a successful stage, a series of successful stages. Okay. Of course, the famous one is the Rostow's arguments, and this is one, and the other one just about the same time is the so-called dual economic model. Dual economic model, which emphasizes on the two sectors. Dual means two. Okay, two sectors growth model, two sectors growth model, which emphasize on the structural transformation. The growth of the economy is the structural transformation. And if you consider one traditional sector and then the other non-traditional sector, and the structural transformation is from traditional sector to switch resources from traditional sector into the non-traditional sectors. And a structural transformation of this process describes the growth of the economy. Okay? And an important mechanism behind this structural transformation is through the so-called surplus labor. Because you need to shift resources from one to the others. And the major argument, because they are cost for any kind of mobilities. Okay? The movement of the resources is costly. Okay? They are always cost by moving one resources to the other. Okay? So here emphasizes the so-called surplus labor. How to use the surplus labor in the agriculture sector, because agriculture is relatively backward, and you've got a lot of population in the traditional sector, and therefore you have surplus or marginal or surplus labor in traditional sector, and how to mobilize those surplus labor here means that zero marginal productivity of labor, almost redundant labor. So how to smoothly transform those surplus labor from non-agricultural sector into from the traditional agricultural sector into the modern non-agricultural sector. Okay, so it emphasizes the transformation of using this surplus labor from agricultural sector to the non-agricultural sector. So the pure economy model, okay, emphasizes the structural transformation. Okay, and emphasizes on the traditional and the non-traditional sector. So these are two groups, and one is arguing for different things, the other is arguing for different sectors transformation. Anyway, these all describe this dynamic change of the economy moving forward. Okay? And later in the 60s and then into 70s is the so-called neoclassical growth model. Okay, neoclassical growth model. Pioneer economist is the Robert Solow from MIT. He argued that the process of growth of the economy is through a dynamic process of capital accumulation. It is through capital accumulation. You need to accumulate capital over time in order to augment the production process, and therefore move the economy forward. Okay, and by looking at the so-called production function, you have input, you have output. Output is what? Input is capital and labor, and then you through this breakfast magic, then you have output, right? So this magic is by a function. Describe this magic. This is called production function. So we have a production function, turn input into output. Turn input into output through a function. Through a function called production function. This is a production function. And we use input output through a production function, then you have output. Okay? And it is very clear from here that labor is limited by the population, the growth of population, right? Labor is limited by the growth of population. And therefore, if you want to have a phenomenal growth in output, it is not possible to depend on population or labor. Okay, because labor is actually limited by the growth of the population. And the growth of the population is limited by humans' biology. Okay? So it's not possible to have a phenomenal growth in a short period of time. Therefore, if you want to have a phenomenal growth in output, then you have to rely on this. What is this? This is the capital. Okay? So capital accumulation leads to output growth. And therefore, a dynamic process of capital accumulation, how to explain these changes, is the core of understanding economic growth. So a dynamic process of capital accumulation described as the fundamental forces behind economic growth. Okay? So this is the major argument. But later, Solow's model, sometimes we call it Robert Solow. Okay? Robert Solow. Sometimes we call it Solow growth model. But later, Solow tells us that purely capital accumulation will not work in the long run. It can work only in the short run. It can work only in the short run. Because you cannot accumulate capital forever. Right? Because capital accumulation is a kind of investment, right? Through what? The change of capital is through change in investment. Change in investment changes the stock of capital, right? So this capital is through investment. Right? Through so-called investment. Right? Investment. Okay? And when you are doing the investment, you encounter a problem. What? Because investment, you have to evaluate cost and the benefit. Right? You have to compare cost and benefit. And what is the benefit of investment through capital investment? It's the return from the piece of the capital, right? Either machine or equipment, right? The return on equipment or machines, that's the benefits. And the cost is what? Cost is the money that you have to put into the investment. So the cost is what? Is the opportunity cost of using the money, the fund, in investment. So the cost is what we call interest rate, right? The cost of using the money, right? To invest, right? And how about the benefits? The benefit is the return from the piece of the capital, right? What is the return on a piece of capital? is the marginal product of this piece of capital. Okay. Right? But we have a very important law of diminishing of marginal return in economics. We say that the marginal return will diminish eventually as you keep accumulating and invest. The return will still positive return, but however, the marginal return means the additional return by investing additional amount of money. The additional return, the marginal return, will diminish. It's still positive, but diminishing over time. Okay? So since the benefits were diminished over time due to the diminishing marginal return, therefore, it is not possible to accumulate capital forever, right? Because your benefit is declining. But your cost, interest rate, is positive, right? You never have a negative interest rate. Even today, you can say that it's zero interest rate, but not negative interest rate. Okay? So you have positive interest rate, the cost, positive cost, with the diminishing benefits. What does it mean? It means that in the long run, you will start invest once the cost over your marginal benefits. Your marginal cost over your marginal benefits, then you will stop invest. Right? That's the cost-benefit analysis. Cost-benefit analysis tell you that if the marginal benefits greater than the marginal cost, then you should invest more. By investing more, you get additional marginal benefits, right? And you incur marginal cost. But the marginal benefit is greater than marginal cost, therefore you should invest. And you keep investing, right, over time. That is what we have, the investment in I over time. But investment in I, you encounter the diminishing marginal return, which means that the marginal benefits will decline over time with a positive marginal cost. Therefore, eventually, your marginal benefits will lower than your marginal cost. If marginal benefits less than marginal cost, for any rational investor, you will stop investing. You will start accumulating capital. Once you start invest, then you will start accumulating capital. Once you start accumulate capital, this is fixed. So this is fixed, then in the long run, output will be fixed. So no growth at all in the long run. That's the major implication through solar power. So in the short run, it depends on investment. Solar tell you that in the long run, it depends on what? If you look at here, if K cannot do anything in the long run, so is L, what can we do to increase Y? What can we do? What's your suggestion? To increase Y. If you look at here, only K and L, and then you have Y, so this production. K, L is limited, and the K is also some sort of limited in the long run. Then how can you have growth in the long run? Increase L, but actually as the economy develops, the fertility rate declines. Population becomes smaller and smaller as the decline in the fertility rate. How can you expect L to grow in the long run? Open up immigration, but as you can see now, in the world, usually they impose a kind of restriction on immigration. And even immigration, if you take this as a whole for the whole Earth, where can you have more immigration? From Mars? But if you take the whole world as one, how can you have a world economic growth? If you view this can be viewed as one country, as one industry, and even as a one global world. In a one global world, then this is a production function for the whole world. Where did this labor comes? Immigrants from where? From Mars. From whom? That's what you can do. Increase L? Yeah. Yeah, but I already tell you, in the long run, capital will be also restricted. No investment in the long run. Because diminishing marginal return of the marginal benefits of investment. So you're not going to invest at a certain point of time in the future. Right? No hope. No growth at all. And that's the limits of growth. Something like that, right? Zero growth in the long run. No hope. Any suggestions? Purely looking at this diagram and this equation. What can you do? Change the magic box. If this is something you can depend on, and this is the final output, something in here you can make some difference. That's the magic box. What we describe as magic box? Productivity function, production function. What's the major ingredient in this box, in this magic function? Technological change. Change in the technology, change the F function, change this magic box. So the trick is the technological change, to change the magic box here. And this is the major contribution of solar. Not because of the accumulation of capital as an important driving force, but tell us that eventually you have to rely on this magic box. And what's behind the magic box is sometimes we call Soros ignorance. Or sometimes we call Soros residual. And Soros tell us that's the magic of technological progress. You have to rely on technological progress. That is the major answer that Soros tells us for the growth of the economy. Soros provides this answer to us, but fortunately, he tells us that we should look at technological progress, but unfortunately, he never tells us where are those technological progress. How can we have one after the other? Where does this technological progress come from? Where does it come from? He did not give us any answer. So therefore, it's called exogenous. So therefore, we call it exogenous technological progress determining the growth of the economy. So stock neoclassical growth theory is also called exogenous growth theory. Exogenous growth theory, because technological change is exogenous. It's from outside, I don't know, just magic. It's a magic box. But in the mid-1980s, okay, in mid-1980s, a group of economists tried to go beyond Soros' exogenous growth model by so-called endogenous growth model. Endogenous growth model in a way that endogenous to technological progress. Trying to explain what caused the technological progress. If we understand how the technological progress evolved, then we will be able to answer where the growth comes. How can we sustain a long-run growth of the economy if we know how those technological progress will flow? Okay? So this is so-called endogenous growth theory. Okay. So endogenous technological change. Okay. And the growth mechanism behind this endogenous growth, they argue several factors. One is human capital. The one thing that you can think about is human capital, which is different from here. Here only emphasize on capital, labor, but capital is physical capital. Labor is just only a pure raw labor, nothing with human capital, just like the quantity of people. But we are talking about quality of people, which is the human capital, not in here. Okay, and the human capital, which is different from physical capital, as we just mentioned, we described about the physical capital can be collateral, right? But human capital cannot. And human capital actually subjects to financial constraint in investment, but physical capital not. Okay, so in this regard, physical capital is better than human capital. Right? But one thing we didn't actually tell, I didn't actually tell you is that the important difference between human capital and physical capital is that physical capital is subject to diminished marginal return. Human capital, for individual persons, yes. If I did not actually keep with doing research, reading papers, doing my own research, my knowledge was restricted. Therefore, human capital for individual persons subject to diminished marginal return, just like physical capital, right? But human capital, different from physical capital will become obsolete after the life of the capital, right? Once it's worn out and maybe 10 or 30 years, or 2 years, 20 years, then it completely useless. Right? How about human capital? Yes, we may die one day, right? But however, the knowledge of human capital, knowledge embodied in our human capital, keep carrying on generation after generation, which actually stand on the shoulder of the giant. That is what the Newton must say, right? So this human capital actually carry on generation after generation, and it never actually get obsolete. It's actually accumulated over time, and the return never diminishes over time. Our knowledge is much better than our previous generation. Generation after generation, actually, we accumulate our knowledge, and we become better and better in understanding the world through our knowledge. But it is not subject to this market. Okay, so let's make a major difference. Human capital different from physical capital, and that may explain the continuing growth of the human capital. That's what I'm doing. The other one is the R&D and innovation. Definitely, the technology process needs a kind of breakthrough. The kind of breakthrough in production, right? And that needs some research in the development and also innovation, product innovation or process innovation, right? So R&D and innovation can be also an important source for resolving the growth. And the other is learning by doing and technology diffusion. You did not need to invent the techniques of technology, but however, you learn from others. You transfer technology from elements to less elements. If you diffuse the technology from one country to the other, and that kind of technology diffusion actually also brings in the change in your production function. Okay? So those are factors that has been emphasized today. That's the modern growth theory. Today, try to explain the so-called engine of the growth. These are engine of the growth. Okay? And we know what that engine means. Not exogenous. They are endogenous. They are actually built in our system, not outside from the mass. And that is what we try to understand what's the real driving force of the economic growth. Okay? For time start, I will stop here. Next time I will try to elaborate a little bit more regarding about this growth theory, but however I already introduced these very different types of the growth theory and how they evolve over time and what's the most important theory today that has been used widely by the scholars in understanding the source of economic growth. Okay, so that's all I want to say about this. Any questions? Any questions? Okay.